Hello, everyone, and welcome to Juice IT. My name is Hassan Baickdeli, and I look after emerging technologies across ANZ. I'm here today to talk to you about the importance of embracing these technologies and how some of these technologies are changing the way organizations do business these days. So when we look at the digital universe, it's doubling every 2 years. The Internet of Things will grow from 10 billion to 20 billion by the end of this year. And then jobs requiring AI skills increase will reach about 400% as to what they normally would be by the end of this year as well. I mean, if you take a look back and have a look at the way, when we left school and how we went into the workforce and, we looked through the paper and had a look at some elements of, requirements around office skills, word processing skills, etc., Excel. Well, AI from a skill perspective is required in jobs these days. And when we look at the data that's stored, when we look at that digital currency of the fourth industrial revolution, organizations are still sitting at about 80% of this data still unstructured, which means when you try and translate that to an end user compute perspective, you're really wasting money for jam because you're not taking that real-time data and translating it in a way that your users can actually leverage. So skill sets are changing, like I mentioned, around AI. Technologies are really driving this change. And there's a whole lot of alignments coming together around different businesses on how they use this technology. If we have a look at blockchain, for an example, banks are using blockchain technology today. But then you look at industries like the legal industry, who have generally been traditionally driven with reams of paper they still, wheel around from court case to court case as evidence. They're now using blockchain technology to group verify pieces of information or elements of documents that they might need. And then business models, and we've seen a whole lot of disruption in the last 10 years. You look at elements like Uber, you look at food delivery services, you look at platforms like Airbnb and things like Airtasker. Business models are certainly changing, and a lot of organizations, instead of putting a lot of effort and emphasis into bricks and mortar, are looking at the way how they can build platforms that enable other businesses or provide levels of employment to people who normally wouldn't have them. So it's all about understanding the technology and the opportunities it can bring. Now, this is a market tunist slide I've had in my deck for quite some time now, and I always feel it's very relevant because you've got people going, this will be the year about AI. This will be about podcasts and nano influencers and blockchain, like I just mentioned, and voice search. And then a lady there's going, shouldn't we talk about our strategy first? Dead silence, and then another guy goes, and this will be the year of VR. And don't get me wrong, VR and other technologies, there's a lot of hype that comes with them. And when we talk to different organizations about it, they turn around and go, but what about when the novelty wears off? And that is a really eye-opening comment, because if people look at technology as an element of something being novel or, something that might be a fad and might come and pass, they're really not understanding the way that it's supposed to be implemented and the way it needs to be looked at from various angles to have a proper outcome for organizations. But I'll run you through that in a second. So when you look at Lenovo, we're a large, everybody knows us as a PC manufacturing company, and we sure do hardware, and we do hardware really well. So from the pocket with our Motorola brothers and sisters to the data center with our DCG cousins, we've got you covered, but it's not about the hardware and technology we make. And look, here you can see, levels of investment of $1.2 billion into artificial intelligence. Now we've got about 63,000 employees. And this is not, we're not beating our own chests here, but this is just to demonstrate that we're not a fly-by-night organization. And some people might see our PCs, but not really understand to the scale we take technology seriously. And this is how we've transitioned from what you would traditionally see us as a PC company now into what we now call a technology company. So what can emerging technology do for you? And, back to the comment I just made around the novelty piece, it can't be a deployment, right? It needs to be a strategy. We've talked with a lot of organizations who have come across emerging technologies and caught on to the hype train and turned around and said, oh yeah, we definitely love this. We're going to make it something and we're going to implement it into our environment. Well, it can't be just an implementation, Like I said, it's a very dynamic discussion when we talk to organizations we work with, and it's very much around different elements as well as different stages of implementation, right? It's a strategy that needs to be driven. So when we look at it, the first element is human centricity. Technology is not about a device or a service or a platform of zeros and ones. It's really about human centricity. So when we go into an organization and we identify the challenges around the end user or around a benefit or a positive impact to the end user or to the person that will be leveraging this, as well as all the facets in between, are really is where we identify, potential challenges. You know, Determining the changes, because they would have been, let's look at somebody, working a field, working crops. They're doing it in a traditional sense, right? How do we digitize that? How do we make sure that the changes we're going to put in place are not only contextual, but aren't a roadblock or a disruption to their current business, right? Because what we need to do is not make it something that's a barrier, but something that's a desire to want to implement, right? It needs to make a change for the user, right? We have a look at mission critical deliverables, because obviously there are immediate challenges and immediate things that need to be overcome by that organization and via that user. So we determine those as must-haves. And then we go through a list of nice-to-haves as well, because when you're approaching your customers, or from a technology perspective, we're talking to people who want to implement these changes, as technologists, it's our mission and our duty to ensure that what we're talking to our customers about is not just for the here and now, but build as many nice to haves in that might be mission critical deliverables in the second or third year of the implementation that we can implement now. So the ROI piece is driven really well. Connectivity and compliance, security is paramount, making sure all these endpoints, all these sensors from an IoT perspective, all these laptops that are going out are secure, are compliant with regards to the security protocols as well as connectivity requirements of the organizations they're being implemented in. And, things like digital identity and credentials, some people don't think about this, but when you pick up a device and you're out there doing a site survey, ensuring that, me as Hassan, who's authorized to go out and do that survey, is the one signing on via biometrics, either via retinal scan or via fingerprint. So instead of needing a signature on a piece of paper that they might have to take to court later, is something that's verified on the spot. And then understanding the required end user enablement from a security perspective, and then wrapping that back into the previous slide from a human centricity piece needs to be enabled as well. So agile delivery and digital methodology. So, when we talk to our customers, we speak to them about a smooth and planned transition and implementation. It can't be something that's, oh yeah, let's do it. And you think unknowingly at the flick of a switch, you can make the change overnight. It doesn't happen like that, right? It happens in stages, right? And what we need to be mindful of as well is the capability to scale and evolve beyond the here and now. We need to make sure appropriate platforms and connectivity integrations are done as smoothly as possible. And then holistic integrated platforms and ecosystems, not separate ones, where people come in and provide a piece to the puzzle, but then go, you have to use our, bespoke system and it won't talk to anything else. It can't be like that, right? Users need something that's holistic. And then contextual enablement of data. I spoke about that 80% that's unstructured. We need to make sure that that's implemented as well, because that allows people to make real-time critical decisions. And the user experience. The user experience is huge. We don't need an instruction manual to use our banking apps on our phone, order Uber Eats, etc. The same methodologies need to be implemented, when doing a mobility first strategy or leveraging an application that's going to be used out in the field or remotely, and even inside the office, right? We need to lift that level of not only engagement, but productivity by ease of use. And it can't be about the technology. It needs to be more about the outcome. So yeah, we never talk tech. We talk, when we approach our customers, we talk about what needs to be done, what needs to be revealed or enabled in the end. So, we've done a few projects and we're working with a few organizations at the moment. And, with climate change impacts, we're starting work with a local supplier who creates sensors that is all about saving the avocado. So the avocado is about $1,000 a year plant for farmers. And during this drought season, they've been going in states of distress and dropping their fruit, which obviously impacts the farmers greatly. So we're working with a local sensor provider who can not only measure the level of moisture in the soil, but they can measure the diameter water of the avocado tree, as well as the amount of water it's taking up, so they can determine when to water the plant with these thousands of litres of water that they're trucking in because of the drought, etc. And they can determine when to pick the fruit for optimal yield as well. Same thing with cows, farmers are also trucking in thousands of litres of water to pour into troughs, and either the cows drink it or they don't drink it, or evaporates up into the air. But what we can do is object recognition now. And what I mean by object recognition, separate to facial recognition, is measure the body of a cow and determine that this cow, this object is actually a cow, and it's coming up to the trough to have a drink. 10 cows turn up, 30 litres of water is released. If another cow turns up, an additional 3 litres of water is released, and that's how much cows drink per sitting. Then if a sheep turns up, 1,000 litres of, 1 litre of water is released. So it's all about identifying the objects and releasing the water to be able to get maximum yield for the investment on the water that's being trucked in. We look at smart workspaces, and this is a very good picture of what some organizations are leveraging as the modern workplace these days. So it's no longer sitting behind desks, it's about, if I'm out at a meeting in the city and I'm about to come back to work, I can pull up an app on my smartphone and determine if there are any hot desks free, because as another colleague puts a laptop on the desk, on a hot desk, it actually books that desk out for an hour or however long they require to. So if I'm finishing a meeting in the city and there's only one hot desk available, thinking to myself, okay, should I go to another meeting or should I go work from home, right? So it's all about the smart environment via IoT. And the modern workspace, as I mentioned, out in a field, at home, behind the coffee table or at a cafe, it's about working from anywhere and understanding how we can enable beyond the one-to-one compute device to ensure that, productivity is paramount. So it's all about emerging tech and really how it drives compute outside of what we see it as the norm. And efficient and smart lighting. Look, councils, have to climb a pole to normally check the life remaining on a bulb, or it's set for 3 years and then they have to try and guess, or somebody has to go and look to see if a light bulb has actually popped on a street light. If you're talking about the streets of Paris, France, they've got heritage listed lights, so how do you get in there? Well, smart bulbs are being made at the moment, as well as, for lights that can't take smart bulbs, sensors on the end of the bulb to be able to determine how much usage each bulb has had, and if it's about to fizzle before the end of its warranty period, so they can call the manufacturer and ask them to bring out another light to replace that one, right? But essentially what a service maintenance person would be able to do is walk down the street and on a tablet see how many hours of usage each light bulb has had, and then it would be labeled by each street light. So from a council's perspective, that not only increases productivity, but talks to OH&S as well, because people don't need to be climbing as often to check light bulbs, etc., if they haven't had smart ones fitted as yet. And look, this is a phrase from Bill Gates that I absolutely love. It's the first rule of any technology used in a business is that automation applied to an efficient operation will magnify the efficiency. And then the second is that automation applied to an inefficient operation will magnify the inefficiency, which is a very, very powerful statement. So technology isn't there to, in my opinion, by the way, isn't there to replace or make anything redundant. It needs to be an increase or a plus to what already is present. So that's a comment I love. And look, this is not about product bashing, but to give you a understanding of how some of the features and benefits we currently bake into our product from a smart workplace perspective is far-field microphone and digital assistance. And what I mean by those two elements is that, we could be in a room full of 50 people, and I could be talking to my device, and via artificial intelligence, it's taking all that audio up and only converting my voice into text. Right? So, or it could be recording multiple people and recording individual lines for text for each person, so you don't have to type up too much. Smart tags and beacons, obviously, like I mentioned with hot desking, but being able to remotely manage a fleet of 50,000 devices. Somebody comes in and puts a USB and it has a piece of malicious software on there, and alert is done, and via one click in a console, in a web console, across your entire fleet at the BIOS level, USB is locked down. So it's about understanding these enhancements, right? And edge computing, you know, I mentioned that avocado as well as cattle examples. So this is edge computing actually enables those. So at the tower, at the cell tower, on premise, you know, remote premise, as well as on device. And these things are made fit for purpose. So exposure to the elements, right? These things can sit on a pole out in the middle of nowhere and last for years. And then personal and commercial, look, I use one of these devices. This is our Yoga Smart Tab. And look, I carry one of these when I travel. You know, hopefully we'll be traveling soon again. But, you know, I used to carry this around and I used to run Teams meetings off this device as well. But as well, I used to make duo calls to my daughter when I was traveling. So these kind of devices, you know, companion devices go a long way. And I've actually got one of that's my device there. Oh, you might not be able to see it, but that's my device there. So it's really about, you know, making sure that you're connected in the ways you want to be connected. And then, you know, mobility first strategy. And again, with our brothers and sisters in Motorola, we're doing some phenomenal things there. So NFC secure access to your buildings, zero sign-on. What I mean by zero sign-on is you no longer have to carry a token or have an application running on your device to log into your network. A QR code will pop up. You scan that with your mobile phone, and then it actually logs you in with your credentials, you know. Auto event sensing, you know, making sure that when you walk into the office, you know, if you've got any meetings, etc., all the notifications come up on your device saying, hey, you know, Danielle's here for your meeting with her at 10 o'clock. Can you please make your way to this room, etc. And we all know about mobile payments, etc. But we've also taken devices like these and replaced all those components you see inside a taxi. So the job booking, the meter reading, the comms, etc., now replaced with a singular device. So it's really about understanding how the technology can work for the use case or user profile it's being implemented into, right? So again, it's not about our technology. You know, we're very grateful and humbled that a lot of organizations and users out there take our technology. But what's even more powerful and more profound, and what we love hearing about, is how they're making it work for them. So it's not just about what we give to people; it's how it makes a change or difference in the way they work or the way they play. You know. And look, on that note, it's the end of my presentation. I hope what I've been able to provide you has given you a little glimpse of some of the things we're doing with technology that's really making changes for people. If you'd like any information about this at all, please reach out to your Data3 rep and have them get in contact with us. We'd only be more than happy to engage with you and understand how technology can make a change and difference for you and your organization. On that note, I hope everyone is safe and well, and very much look forward to connecting in a more physical element next time. Thank you very much.
Okay, hi everyone. I'm Daniel Morris. I'm the SDI Lead for Lenovo and ANZ. Today, we're talking about tailoring your cloud strategy to deliver business agility, which is a mouthful, but it's a long way of saying that this is a quick presentation about our hybrid cloud strategy. Now, do you know Lenovo DCG? We are the #1 HPC provider worldwide. The picture in the background is of the world's most beautiful data center, which is actually one of our HPCs in Spain. We've been the most reliable x86 platform for the last 7 years, and actually quite considerably more so than some of our competitors. We've just been announced the VMware Partner of the Year for 2020 at a worldwide level, and also at an APJ level, which is a great award. We've got the most x86 performance world records out of any of our competitors, and we are a leading VDI provider. We partner with all of the major VDI providers in the market. Now, hybrid cloud. Cloud is actually in Lenovo's DNA. We provide hardware and services to 6 of the top 10 hyperscalers. I can't tell you who they are, but you can have a guess. But on premises, right, where we're looking to have that hybrid cloud to be able to consume infrastructure like it would be in the cloud, this is where SDI, or software-defined infrastructure, comes in. And we are growing at 2 times the market when it comes to SDIs, especially here locally in ANZ. Now, with COVID-19, it's great. Cloud is booming. It's fantastic. Azure is seeing 775% increase in Azure use, but that's coming at a cost, and customers are actually starting to see the impact of the cloud actually not being able to scale to demand. So it's still infrastructure. There's still planning needs to be done, and this is where hybrid cloud comes in, where I might want to choose some workloads to make sense in cloud, and some workloads are going to make sense back on premises, whether it's performance, whether it's locality, it might be things like data sovereignty, TCO. There's a whole bunch of different reasons. Now, if you were looking to bring some of that workload back, what's Lenovo's advantage, right? We have a very strong pedigree when it comes to hybrid cloud. We are arguably Nutanix's largest partner here locally in Australia. You saw before we won the VMware Partner of the Year awards. We're an end-to-end solution provider. We have our laptops and desktops. We own Motorola, for example, and then we've got all the infrastructure that we're talking about today, as well as what we're providing to the cloud. We are the only infrastructure provider that really goes end-to-end like this. We get software choice. So I've got another slide coming up, but we partner with the best software providers in the market and provide them as appliances and solutions so that you can use them in your environments depending on what the problem is. And I'll talk some more on that. And then best-in-class supply chain. Now, you might be saying, why is this guy talking about supply chain? I know he is on the screen. Lenovo owns our own manufacturing factories, and we control our supply chain end-to-end. Now, what that means is we've actually got manufacturing hubs outside of places like China. We've got Taiwan, for example, Mexico. Now, when COVID-19 started up, we were actually able to move manufacturing to other parts of the world to try and meet demand. And now China's coming back to I guess to normal within reason. We're seeing all that workload now coming back out of China. So I would argue we're probably the only tier one hardware vendor now not having supply chain issues in the market today. So if you are having issues getting equipment, if you want to see how long maybe some of our delivery times are, just please reach out. Now, when it comes to hybrid cloud, like I said, Azure's gone nuts. People are moving workloads there. Great. I mean, it's all about speed to market. But now, as people look at security, as they look at TCO, they might be looking, okay, what makes sense in cloud and what makes sense back on-prem? Now, this is a survey from 2 years ago, but you can see 81% of people surveyed said that they will have some sort of hybrid cloud strategy. They're not saying they won't have a cloud. Now, the bottom thing there, 22% of premises non-cloud. So on-premises non-cloud. So in other words, they're not going to go to cloud, but they still want to have some sort of orchestration of cloud-like capabilities. But the majority actually want to have a mixture of off-premises and on-premises cloud. And this is where the solutions that we provide come in, because different people have different skills and different needs. We got on the left there, re-engineering applications. You can basically roll your own. We can provide all the infrastructure, and then you can build the platform you need on top of that, right? Think Red Hat, for example. But then as we move across to the right, you might want to have a bit more appliance-like repeatable building blocks. So you can see the integrated building blocks. So things like Nutanix, or it's called our Think Agile HX platform. VX, which is our vSAN solution, right? So these are repeatable building blocks where we've validated and engineered the appliances, and we support it like it's appliance. And then on the right there, vendor supported all-in-one. Think Azure Stack. We've also got a product called Think Agile CP, which is you consume it like an on-premises cloud. It's multi-tenant by design. So what happens is you consume it via a portal on the web, right, in the cloud somewhere, but when you run your workloads and consume your data, it's in your data center, and basically it's built to have multiple sites. It's built for things like DevOps, that multi-tenant environments, self-service portals, all that sort of stuff. So depends on where you are and what you want to achieve. That's why we have the various solutions. Where we are probably most successful is here in Australia is the integrated building blocks. So things like Think Agile HX with Nutanix, and Think Agile VX with VMware, and then finally Think Agile MX with Microsoft. So we were very creative with our naming scheme there. Now just moving on, TCO is an important part of all this thinking, right? So some of the workloads are going to make more sense in the cloud, simple as that. But for this example is on the screen now, was for 1,000 seat VDI environment, and we looked at the cost of Azure and we looked at the cost of on-prem, and the picture here doesn't do it justice. We looked at the floor space cost, the cooling, the cost of the people to manage it, network cost, right? The software cost on top. So we put all those things together, and over 5 years, you get an example there of this is of 1,000 desktops. Now these guys are actually going to look to run probably more like 3,000 or 4,000 desktops. So you can sort of see how that cost blows out, and the majority of the cost there is network. Now in your own data center, you can control that, but as soon as you go to the cloud, that's one of the factors where unfortunately you can't control. So we've got facilities. This is actually was one run by Nutanix, but we can help you with that TCO. Like I said before, sometimes it's going to make more sense for it to be in the cloud for access, for speed, for scale, for the rest of it. But you can see in this picture here, this is where the next hybrid cloud battleground is in the data center. Azure, AWS, Google Cloud, they're all creating solutions to go into your data center. They've recognized that they can't run everything, right? So Azure Stack, we've got AWS Outpost, right? Google's got Anthos, but Nutanix, VMware, Microsoft, our CP series, and also our DM series powered by NetApp are going the other way. They're providing hybrid cloud solutions that originate in your data center and then fan out. So it's going to be very interesting to watch over the next couple of years. Now, I put this slide in because I've been talking to you about technology solutions, but it needs to be about what's the outcome, what's the solution, what are we trying to get to? And I think if we start with that question, it's actually quite easy to work back to what the technology needs to be. Now this picture takes a bit to build. Come on. Maybe I pressed the wrong button. Yes, I did. And that moves on to there is data everywhere. Data is being consumed by our phones, by our TVs, the rest of it, by cars. There's data everywhere at the moment. Now, I presented this at a event we had last year in Sydney, where if the whole world played paper, rock, scissors, and you basically eliminated people that didn't make it, it would only take 33 times to beat everyone on the planet. And that's this idea of exponential function. Now, the reason why I have that there is because you can see there on the right, that's not a long time away, that's next year. They reckon there's going to be up to 850 zettabytes of data produced by IoT devices as of next year, as opposed to the 21 in the cloud. Now, what do you do with that data? How do you save it all? Do you process it? How do you, especially in Australia with our NBN, how do you get the data flying around? And this is where we're starting to see this uptake of Internet of Things. And actually, let's go back. And how do I manage that? And so we've actually got an entire division called CIoT, where commercial IoT, which is around solutions to deal with that data influx. Now, most of that's going to be video. We have solutions like what's called an SC350, where you can put a small server out on site, right? You can just even screw it in the wall, and it will ingest that video data, do AI work on it, and then just send you what you need. So we've got plenty of solutions that can handle some of those problems. But this one is an unusual problem. This is not a Lenovo product. I just find it funny, but you can see there on the left, we've now got internet-connected diapers or nappies. So if anyone says to you, no, we're not going to have that many devices, you think about how many nappies that people go through. So this is an internet-connected nappy that will tell you when it's time for a change. So in other words, it's literally the internet of, you get it. So I just like that picture. And this is where we're getting to, right? This edge to cloud. So we've traditionally gone from the data centers out to the user, right? Sort of what I'm doing now to you. You're consuming what I've got, but it's going to transition to these devices. All this information is now going to be produced at the edge and then funnel up into either the data center or the cloud, or a mix of both, to do big data analysis, to do all manner of work on this data. Data is the key, but some of it is useful and some of it's not. So how do you manage that? And so that's why we're coming out with all of these edge and IoT solutions. And this is where hybrid cloud, right? I know sometimes you think about, it's a big hybrid cloud might be a big bunch of servers in your data center. Hybrid cloud in this scenario might be a single server on the edge screwed into a power pole that's helping with 5G and reporting home, analyzing data and then reporting back just the bare minimum of what it needs to deal with the bandwidth problem. So it's more about how do I manage that at scale. If I've got 10,000 of these devices, I can't be managing them individually. So this is where these software solutions are really, really effective. Now, this comes down to, this is why we have the choice. Busy slide, but you don't have to read it all. The idea of it is we partner with all these vendors, right? We've got Microsoft, Nutanix, even from an Oracle and Red Hat perspective, right? SAP, we were the infrastructure partner of the year for SAP. We are the worldwide leader in SAP for as far as Lenovo goes. So it's our job to go and partner with these people so that you don't have to worry about that. We have the reference architectures, we have the skills in house, and then we can help you with whatever problems and solutions that you need from there. Now, I had to put this in there because obviously I'm the HCI guy. The blue lines there, we partner with all those customers, with all those software providers. We partner with Nutanix, we partner with VMware, Microsoft. Microsoft is improving enormously. This is part of the reason why customers come to us, because I don't own any of those products, but they are partners of mine. What's the outcome we're trying to get to, and then we can suggest the right solution from there. Now, with all those solutions, there's this thing called Think Agile. And what we do is we bundle it up as an appliance. So it's pre-engineered, but in particular, we support it like it's appliance. So we know that that's a VMware box. We know it's a vSAN box. We know it's a Nutanix box. We know that's Think Agile CP, for example. So when you call up, we can treat it as a whole solution, not just a box with some software on top. Now, we've just released this thing called Lenovo SDI Easy Buy. So with the products I've been talking about, we now have pre-sized, pre-priced solutions in market. You can have a chat to obviously Data3, and they can talk with distribution about this. But we think this is probably a good way to get started with some of these solutions, where we've sized it for certain workloads, and we've got that pricing out in the market. So if you want to go have a look at that, please reach out to me, reach out to anyone at D3, and we can go from there. And we've done the same thing around VDI. Now I'm getting close to time, so I better hurry up. But this is the idea: scalable individual components, and then we can size and scope for what you need. We do have a choice of finance. Lenovo DAS is desktop as a service, so we can do fully managed desktop solutions, and then Lenovo TrueScale is consumption-based infrastructure, right, where we can actually charge you based on the amount of power you use. That's very interesting technology, that one. And then finally, just to finish off, I've got this same webinar. It'll be a little bit similar, but in a lot more detail on the 17th of June. So you can see my Twitter there. I'll send out the link on LinkedIn and on Twitter. I just love this dog. Work from home, work from hammock. Thank you very much. Have a great day. Cheers.